There we go. And let me just check and see here. I know sometimes people trickle in a little bit after these things get started. And we just got started. Let me check. Participants, looks good. We got a couple people there. And I know that we've got a few more coming. So while we're waiting for the rest of the folks to show up here this evening, I want to introduce myself. My name is Nat Ferguson. I'm a local real estate broker here in Seal Beach. And tonight I have the pleasure of interviewing Joe Kalmick, currently a sitting mayor in Seal Beach. And as you guys know, we have a midterm election right around the corner. And Joe also happens to be our District 1 council person. And so there's a lot of moving parts in District 1. And because of that, I reached out to Joe and said, hey, would you like to interview and talk about some topics I think are top of mind for folks that live in District 1 specifically. Now, Joe can obviously go much wider with his questions and his answers because he is the mayor and he's on his second term. But I'm going to try to keep it focused to 4 talking points tonight, which I promised him I would do. But before we do that, Joe, why don't you share your professional background with our viewers tonight?
Okay, well, good evening, everyone. As you may or may not know, I've been a resident of Seal Beach for just under 50 years now. Came here in 1973 on St. Patrick's Day, which was quite an event at the time. I also met my wife at about the same time, my future wife at about the same time. And I've lived in Old Town. No, actually, I lived in Bridgeport for 4 years in the area that the city had auctioned off and created new lots and so forth. But basically, I've been most of the time in Old Town, and you know, I've sort of grown up here the second half of my life almost, and for about 40 years, I owned a business on Main Street. It was a custom picture framing business, and that's where I made so many friends in town. Customers that became very close friends all over the city, actually. And also for about 30 years, I served as a volunteer firefighter for what was then the Seal Beach Fire Department, and then moved over to the Orange County Fire Authority when we were taken over by the county. And it's ironic because I was just a volunteer and now I'm their boss, as I am the city's representative on the Orange County Fire Authority, and you know, am voting on everything from new helicopters to budgets to negotiations with the labor forces and so forth. So it really gave me a good background to say, okay, I'm retired now. What do I want to do? And at the urging of a lot of friends and neighbors and so forth, they suggested that city council was a good move. And so back in 2018-19, because there was a runoff, I was elected to represent District 1, and immediately, you know, jumped in with both feet, because no matter how well versed you may be in a lot of other things, and how articulate or smart or knowledge about everything else, once you get on the city council and you get behind the curtain, it's a totally different story. Mm-hmm. We happen to have, I think, you know, one of the best small cities anywhere. Why do people keep wanting to come and live here?
Yep.
You know, we have currently, I've been very fortunate for the things that I've been interested, that we have had a very collegial city council. Most of our votes are actually 5-0. You know, people are looking out for not only their own districts, but seem to get and understand the bigger picture. Mm-hmm. So that's sort of my background.
Currently, would you say that since you've retired, you're busier than you were before you retired?
Well, I used to work 6 days a week. Now I work 7 days a week. It's funny because, you know, one doesn't necessarily think about it, but, you know, I give out my cell phone number it's on my business card for the mm-hmm. city. And I answer every phone call. I answer every email. I will talk to people that don't agree with me and don't even like me, maybe. But mm-hmm. I will give everybody the time and try to explain why I take a certain position or what I'm what my views are on everything from the pier to public works and anything else. So I think that's something that I take a lot of pride in.
Well, that's a great segue. You set that up perfectly for me, so thank you. Because my first question is, what are your plans for the end of the pier?
Well,
I know a lot of people want to know.
First of all, they are not my plans.
Okay.
They are the
What are
plans.
the plans?
There are plans that we've been working on. After the pier was repaired, we immediately began to start internally talking about, well, what do we want to do at the end of the pier? A lot of folks, once they saw the pier in that condition, said, we don't want anything. We like it just empty. So you can just go out there and stand and enjoy the ocean from the end of the pier. But there were a lot of folks that said, we want something at the end of the pier. You know, we've had a food service entity out on the end of the pier probably for 70 years at least that I know of.
Mhm.
So I wasn't necessarily ready to abandon that concept in some form. So I was introduced to a couple of guys who are from the Seal Beach, Huntington Beach area, who are very familiar with restaurants, have built restaurants, and are familiar with the atmosphere and what we would be wanting to look for in a food service place at the end of the pier. So, of course, the pandemic, you know, ground everything to a halt here for almost 3 years, actually,
Mhm.
in terms of the ability to meet and have discussions and stuff in person or even on Zoom. So relatively soon, as soon as we can like get it to happen, we will have our first public presentation by our consultants of ideas for the end of the pier. We'll do it first as a presentation to the council in an open session, of course, and then we'll try and schedule additional meetings of outreach where folks can come and put their dots on the choice that they might have. So we're looking primarily at 4 different concepts, one of which is nothing, and others would involve another restaurant. There's a concept involving food trucks, involving, which we got from actually the city of Pismo Beach. They're using Airstream trailers as the food service entity, and they're really very cool looking. And I recently spoke with a council person that I just happened to run into at another county meeting. And I asked how that was going, and she said that setup has become a destination for people. It's not just we're out on the pier and let's grab a hot dog. And in one of the photographs that you can see on their website, the menu board shows, I mean, it's like gourmet food. So there's something for everybody. Anyway, so that's coming up.
Yeah, that's exciting.
We want the input from the public as to, you know, what their thoughts are and maybe some great new ideas.
I love that you use the word destination. And I think that's when people are dreaming about their vacation to Seal Beach, right? They're dreaming about this beautiful, quaint, maybe sleepy little beach town, and it's their destination. And I just think that bringing the pier back into that conversation or into that vision, right? Because we live here, we're here every day. We just tend to take things for granted. We don't see it from the outside like a lot of people do. So I don't know. I'm excited to see what those concepts look like. Whatever it ends up being, having the pier become part of that destination again, rather than just a very large wooden expense, I think is very exciting. So that probably tipped my hat to.
Good. Well, we're looking forward to it, and just a final thought that we're taking into account every aspect that we possibly can. The economics of a food service at the end of a pier that's almost over 1,800 feet long. So it's a hike to get out there. The weather that's an issue, and the viability. We don't want to see anything built or installed out there that's not going to be successful.
Yeah.
So we put a lot of thought into it.
Outstanding. I'm that really is great to hear. I've been, top of my list anyways. I was just out there this morning enjoying the beautiful views too, but I would love to be able to grab a cup of coffee or take a meeting out there, or, I don't know, invite somebody from out of town to meet me out there. It really is a neat destination once you're in Seal Beach. I just think that there's more that can be done with it. And I'm happy to know that you guys have put a lot of thought and care into that. So I'll be excited to see what comes next.
One of the outdoor concepts includes a glassed-in seating area that could have heaters mounted to where the weather wouldn't necessarily matter unless it's raining, where you could sit out there comfortably and eat or have a meeting or just hang out.
Yeah, that's exciting. Yeah, whoever the consultants are, sounds like they are very familiar with, like you said, food service in that environment, because the environment does come into play. Okay, well, let's talk about this next question here, which I see a lot of. I feel like I see, and you correct me because I know you know more than I do, but I'm just telling you, based upon where my office is located, right over here off 7th and Marina Drive, this tends to be a thoroughfare for the homeless. Something about the fast food restaurants across the street or something. I don't know what it is. And my question is, what would you propose as a solution to the increasing homeless population that we're noticing here in town? Because they come between here and the library, right? They walk up and back.
Right. Well, I need to preface what my response is by reminding everyone, as our police department does, that it is not illegal to be homeless, and that homeless people have the same access to public parks, to the beach, to Main Street, to anywhere in the city, no matter really, in a sense, whether they are dressed the way many of us are dressed or whether they are not looking so good. So that's important for everybody to understand. Secondly, because we are so observant, and because we are a city of people that are walking and that are out and about, we see homeless people. But when you start looking at the data that I know that our PD has and keeps track of, we don't have an increasing homeless problem. It will ebb and flow depending on the time of year, depending on just what's happening. Back earlier this year, the County of Orange did a count, a slice out of time, or one day that every city counted their homeless population, and it was all tabulated. Our count at that particular time was 8. Now, for a city our size, considering that extends, to College Park, East, West, and so forth, that's not an inundation. One of the things that I can't even figure out why is that every once in a while there tends to be a buildup of encampments on the San Gabriel River.
Yeah, I've
always
noticed that.
On the Long Beach side. It's never been on our side. I don't even know the reason. But I have to point out that our PD, all of our officers are trained in outreach to homeless people. And we have 2 officers that are like specially trained in outreach. So anytime our officers encounter a homeless person, whether it's because someone has called to complain or they're patrolling, the first thing is to try and offer services, whether it's transportation, whether it's a housing voucher, whether it's food vouchers, to get them to accept services. This isn't always easy because there's a certain segment of the homeless population that is suffers from serious mental problems, whether it's psychosis or drug abuse or whatever, to where their response is, I don't want any services. And so we do what we can then to say, well, we can't let you block the entrance to the library, or we can't, allow you to, use the outdoors as a toilet. But that's basically what we are able to do by law. But again, the number at the time was 8. I don't see that number ballooning. We work very closely with Long Beach, by the way. There is an effort, another effort to manage the populations that show up in the San Gabriel River.
Mhm.
And there is another avenue that has just been put into law by the state, and it's called Care Court. And what this attempt is, that a homeless individual that is exhibiting psychotic or aggressive behavior, that they will be diverted from jail into a facility, in some cases against their will. So we expect will be pushed back from some entities about that. But basically, they'll be put into a facility that is not just going to be a warm bed and meals. It will have a complete set of services, whether they be medical, psychological, occupational, drug treatment, and whatever. And they can be housed there for up to 2 years. So this affords the chance to hopefully be able to make some changes in that person's life, to be able to have them, either, come back to society. So
Okay.
These are the realities that we deal with, and these are what we're trying to do to manage the situation.
Well, I am happy to hear all of those stats and also that information. I think that, I'm just, it's not my business. I'm just, as you said, an observer. And so I observe these things as I'm out and about around town. And, for the most part, and we've had it, we get some, I don't know, again, right here outside my office, like we do get some rough ones sometimes. Right. But what's that?
I was going to say, do you call the police?
Yeah, if they're like using drugs or whatever, like right outside, which it happens, it is, so we're not going out of our way to do that. And unfortunately, we've got some, believe it or not, I've learned the hard way. We have a couple outlets out here along the sidewalk, and what they do is they find them and they plug their phones into them.
Yeah.
And it becomes like a charging station. And so, and if they, and some of them have phones, you'd be surprised, like they're out there charging, but they're also using drugs while they're charging their phones. So like, that's when we have to ask the police to come.
I will make that point though, that if you see someone that is experiencing homeless and they are doing something that under any circumstance is illegal, or they are being aggressive physically with people, then call the police. The police will respond and deal with those situations. So that should not go unnoticed as an action that can be taken.
Yeah, and I mean, hats off to the police, because it's been a very long time that they've been, kind of intervening, and the Seal Beach Police Foundation kind of helps with, some of the cost of doing that, right? Because they no monies can be spent on that. But the gentle hands they use with these people, I think, is almost like that's like a it really is a specialty to watch how they do that. And I don't think no one here is upset about it. I'm not saying
I understand.
It's just like, this is what's happening. How can we address this issue right now?
Right.
As if one of them would walk into your front patio and set up shop. It's like, we can't allow that to happen. And so they've got a really good balance about how they go about it. So, shout out to the Seal Beach Police Department.
Look, in the old days, going way back, they were put into the back of a police cruiser and driven over the bridge into Long Beach and don't ever come back. That was not a humane way of dealing with the problem. So, our PD is very proactive, but in a positive way.
Very much so. Very much so. So definitely credit to them and Chief Phil and everybody down at the police department for that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, moving on. So another fantastic hot button topic for you.
Yeah.
So what is your position on short-term rentals? Those are the vacation rentals that went away, and things have changed.
It's been taken out of my hands as far as having an opinion.
Okay.
Historically, we had vacation rentals that were basically unregulated. I knew that we had vacation rentals only because as I walked down the boardwalk, I'd see towels hung over the wall of a lot of the places on the boardwalk. And I figured, oh, those must be the vacation renters.
Right.
It evolved to where there were, I don't know, maybe in excess of 25 to 30. And at
Okay.
one point, there was one property down on the boardwalk that was causing a lot of problems. It was an absentee owner, and there was Party City there at Dolphin and the boardwalk.
Yep, I
And that
remember.
precipitated, what are we going to do about this? So at the time, before my time, the city instituted a program where you would have to come in and get a CUP, conditional use permit, to have a vacation rental. And this gave the city the ability to monitor, regulate, enforce whatever things that we didn't want to happen, such as loud parties or whatever. And so we did that. And at the time that happened, 14 vacation rental operators came forward and did that. And that's been the way it's been for several years. And of course, in addition to that, we also know that there's probably another 25 that are operating without permits and are not paying the transient occupancy tax, which does bring a sizable amount of revenue to the city.
Sure.
So we were beginning to have discussions at council about, well, what should we do going forward? Should we try and invite those folks who do not have a CUP to get one and to sort of be on board with the program? 3 weeks ago, however, there were 2 court decisions by the California 2 appellate courts, one against the city of Santa Barbara and one against the city of Manhattan Beach. And basically, the cities do not have the ability to prohibit any vacation rentals. And so we have no say-so on a vacation rental. The only thing that we can regulate is we can say you need to procure a business license and you need to pay the transient occupancy tax to the city. Other than that, we can't restrict the number of vacation rentals. We've had our city attorney, he has been reviewing both court cases. And the first step that we've had to take is to, which we passed at the last meeting, is we are no longer immediately not enforcing any regulations or fining or anything like that. In fact, I read with regard to, I think it's Manhattan Beach, there was even discussion that they might have to return fines that were levied against illegal operators. So this is, once again, a state mandate that has taken the local control away from our city. So we'll have to see how this shakes out. It also is going to necessitate us increasing staff as far as code enforcement, because, between regular code enforcement of construction, everything else, code enforcement on our main street and other streets where we have, restaurants, entertainment, and all of that going on. We'll now have to have the ability to follow up on regulation for vacation rentals. So stay tuned.
Well, I follow it very closely for obvious reasons. Part of it's a component to my business. I don't handle vacation rentals and I don't manage vacation rentals, but certainly people that own them here in town, 14 of them, and some of them happen to be neighbors and friends of mine. And so I hear about their business and their trials and so on and so forth. And there's been many properties that just earlier this year, I was selling one down on Seal Way, just down the way from your house.
Yes. In fact, I've already spoken to the new owner and yes.
I turned down at least 3 different buyers for that because at the time it was, can we vacation rent this? The answer is no. And they went on their way to find something else. But I do want to share this. This is an interesting development, and it just kind of came on my radar with regards to vacation rental management. And I think, and I remember going back to the house on the corner of Dolphin and Seal Way. I mean, I remember seeing the piles of trash out back. It was out of control. There's no doubt. Anybody who remembers that would not argue that it was out of control, because it was.
Yeah.
That, but, and I think that was, what was that, 2014 or 2016?
Yes, I think so.
It's been a while. It's been a while.
Yeah.
So here's the development I want to share, because I think this is important to understand. Specifically with short-term rentals, vacation rentals, the challenge with those things for the owners is also being an owner operator, because you have to understand the mindset of folks that are coming in to enjoy these properties. Now, let's take that one down off, Dolphin and Seal Way off the conversation for just a moment. There, 80% of these properties, this is a statistic I got from a company that handles vacation rental management. That's very specific. That's not property management like you think of for an apartment building. Vacation rental management is an entirely different infrastructure because of the turnover of these properties, right? People are coming and going back to back and staying a week at a time. Because of it, we tend to think that, okay, these people have 1 week, they're just going to go all in and party and have this big hoorah, make a bunch of noise, make a bunch of trash, and then go on their merry way. So this company that handles vacation rental management, I had a meeting with them here at my office, and I said, they knew the dynamics that we just discussed, right, with these upcoming changes and so forth. I said, can you share your statistics internally about the success versus the complaint rate with properties that are managed versus properties that aren't? And they said, properties that are professionally managed have an 80% success rate or no complaint rate. They said, and part of it is the way that they don't like to use the word interview, but that's really what they're doing. So if you say, oh, there's this beautiful home in Seal Beach, I want to go rent it. Just because you have the money doesn't mean you're going to get to rent it. They actually call and walk you through kind of a soft Q&A to make sure that you're a legitimate renter, right? So that's part one. Part two is they're upfront about the fact that they have decibel meters installed in these homes, and the decibel meters are set for different levels. And as the day gets later, the levels get lower. And if there is any, if the meter is being triggered like over and over again, they actually have geographically local on-site management teams, and they'll come over and knock on the door and talk to these people. Now, this isn't something that existed back then. So it was kind of a like figure it out on your own, manage it yourself, or I don't know, like ask your cousin Harry, who also does property management, to do vacation management. And that is two different animals right there. So I guess what I'm trying to leave everybody with is that I think we're inherently going to remember how it was and how that didn't work, and how that upset a lot of people on both sides, right? People that own the vacation rentals and people who lived next to a vacation rental. So the next iteration, I hope, is that we can use this, a company similar to the one I'm describing, and I'm not going to name drop, but if somebody needs the information, they can contact me. But I think that there's a better way to do it when it's like anything. Something that's professionally managed is just going to perform better, right? Yeah. You're going to have better results, better outcome. That's going to generate more TOT tax for the city. That should generate more visitors for the merchants on Main Street, and overall be a good experience. So I don't think that it needs to be a negative outcome or a negative topic.
Not necessarily. I mean, and but like everything, it's a two-edged sword, because while vacation rentals are very much approved by the Coastal Commission because it's visitor serving, it brings more people to access to the coast. With the other side of the state, the Housing and Community Development Department, the vacation rental loses a housing unit on our total. So those are the other issues. So as far as my position, if it's a vacation rental and I have nice new neighbors living next to me for a week, fine. If they are partiers, then it's not fine. And I
Yep.
think that the hope is, as you're talking about, that if there's some mechanism that if in fact this court case stands, or these two court cases stand, and we no longer have the ability to say no, that you cannot have a vacation rental, then, okay, what can we do to mitigate whatever the list of negatives might be for vacation rentals?
Agreed. Yeah, and there is a solution for it. It's just a matter of introducing that into the conversation, whether it's people that are now looking to buy a property that they can rent out in town, or people that own them and are like, okay, well now I can, I mean, there's a gentleman today I talked to. He lives down on the boardwalk as well. What? Did you see the headline in the newspaper? I can finally vacation rent my place. They live on site. They live in one of the two, and their configuration is they've been doing like 1 to 3 month rentals for people, but the margin on the vacation rentals is better. It's higher. So, I just think, again, introducing this into the conversation, giving people a better alternative, because my friends who own 2 here in town, it's exhausting work. I mean, they're making money, but man, it's something else.
I don't know if it's the same folks, but the people that used to live just down the way from me have COA and others. And I can tell you one thing that I've always liked about them explaining how they manage theirs is the last thing they tell their new weekly or whatever tenant is they point to the houses on either side and say, those are your new neighbors. Please act accordingly.
I love that.
And that's a very good point. So
set that expectation.
Right. So, it's something that we're working on. We'll have to look at what does it do to our parking in terms of, if you have a 3-bedroom house that would have, a mother and father and a kid and 1 child and maybe 2 cars, you could, conceivably have 3 sets of parents and 8 kids living on the same premises, and they each have their own car that has to be found to have a place to park. So, at this point, I mean, it's not even important for me to take a stand on whether I'm for them or against them, because that decision as of today, or as we sit here today, is sort of out of my hands, and we'll just have to see what the courts have done and what we can do from there.
Got it. Okay, well, good. I appreciate you taking the time to talk over that one, because you and I had
important
connected on that topic probably a month or so, whenever that ruling came out from the court. So, okay, moving on. This is another one that I just want to preface, having grown up here, and I know we've got some folks that are on our interview tonight. They've lived here as long as I have. I have never ever seen the beach without trash. So what, how do you plan to address the trash from the San Gabriel River, knowing that it's just ongoing?
That was one of my goals when I was elected 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And I've been, how do I put it? It has been something that I have been working on for the entire 4 years. The facts of the matter are that the San Gabriel River is 50 some miles long and involves 53 cities that border on the river and the 2 counties, LA County and Orange County. It's astoundingly difficult to create a situation where you're going to get enough of those cities to be willing to do something to mitigate the problem. So I've spoken with, on numerous occasions, I've spoken with our 2 Congress people, meeting Harley Ruda when he was in office, Michelle Steele, Senator Tom Umberg. I've spoken to Orange County Public Works, and I've spoken with the mayor. Well, he's not mayor yet. The current mayor of Long Beach, as well as the councilwoman who's currently in the district that's across the river from us.
Okay.
It's extremely difficult. I've researched and looked into the various methods of stopping the trash. I know that the city of Newport Beach is going to be installing water wheels in the back
Mhm.
bay. The problem is that in the San Gabriel River, when the river is running with the trash coming down, it'll tear them apart. I've been
Mhm.
told that by the people that manufacture the water wheel solutions. Um, Putting a barrier across the river, either a net or some kind of a cable system, you can do that, but how is the city of Seal Beach going to access the trash that has been captured behind those barriers? We don't have, at least if you go down the San Gabriel River from PCH, to the river's end, there really is not any access to come in and haul out a big dumpster that's filled with trash. So
Mhm.
we're looking into, and I've been personally, looking into any of those solutions that we can have the cities get behind, but there's no leverage. The state through Measure M funds has given funds to all the cities to put catch traps into the storm drains, which is where the genesis of all this trash is, other than the shopping carts and the refrigerators and the big stuff. But
Mhm.
they have until 2030 to carry this out. Now, in
Okay.
our city, last time I had checked, we have approximately 65% of those basins, the catch traps, installed in our storm drains. So, I mean, I don't intend to give up. I have some other, everybody that I talk to that does involved with this. I met a guy who does environmental cleanup,
Mhm.
just by chance. And we're sitting down, we're talking, and I said, "So, what can I do about cleaning up the San Gabriel River?" And so he gave me a couple of ideas that I can contact. I'm going to try and get with the LA County storm control people
Okay.
and prove to them that their trash is coming onto our beach. Even if you have to do something like marking the trash, put it in the river, and then pull it out on our beach and say, "Here, this is yours. You need to step up and start doing something like this." So I know that all of the candidates, regardless of district, are talking about this, but I can only tell you what I've tried to do. And I've spent a lot of time, and I intend to continue to spend more time until we hopefully can. I've looked at grants from the federal government, state government, and county. And
Mhm.
when I talked to the Orange County Public Works Department, they was like, "What river?" It's like not on their radar.
Mhm.
So it's a big problem. It really is. I've
It
even
seems
attacked it.
it
Go
seems
ahead.
overly complicated, if I may.
Well, yeah,
It seems overly complicated because let me uncomplicate this in 2 seconds for everybody listening. If something broke up that river and oil started running down the river, do you think that they would find a solution? Of course they would. But as soon as it's not oil, then it must not be a big problem. And therefore, politics and all this baloney about different jurisdictions and county lines and city lines and blah, blah, blah. Do you see, like, it just kind of just creeps right
absolutely.
into the conversation. If it was a broken oil line, they would stop it instantly from getting out into the ocean. But
Yeah,
because it's not, it's somehow it gets complicated, and that to me is so frustrating and confusing because I remember being probably old enough to go down with my grandmother to the beach, and my favorite time to go, I was probably 3 years old, and we lived on Second Street, so we'd walk right up down Ocean and down into the parking lot, and we'd always go after a storm because I loved to pick up those tennis balls that would float up onto the beach.
right.
Well, tennis balls turned into shopping carts, which turned into this and that, and all this other nasty stuff, this
Right.
flotsam that comes up on there. And it just seems to me that, and I have to say too, this summer we took a trip to Europe, and one of our stops was London. We were sitting there on the River Thames having a pint. and just watching the life go by. And they have these little things that it looks like a little floating dock almost. It's no bigger than maybe a king size mattress. Just floats out there. Guess what? The tide comes in, it scoops up the trash, and guess what? The tide goes back out and it does it the other way. And it's just there's no, I don't think there's electric parts or there's nothing on there. It just works with the tide. And it's not the width of the river, but it's doing something.
No, that's absolutely true.
They just pull up next to it and whatever they do.
Yeah, I mean, that's where, these ideas like the water wheels, they do work depending on the location of where they're put into a river or the moving body of water. I know that when Long Beach did their massive cleanup of the encampments on the jetty, that they ultimately brought in a boat, from Long Beach, a city boat, to, take away that trash. Well, if for us to do something like that, well, number one, we don't have a boat. I don't think Joe Bailey would want us to be picking up trash in his lifeguard boat.
No.
And everything, of course, involves cost.
Sure.
And cost is not the reason at this point why our city isn't doing anything. We need a solution to see whether or not there's money that we will raise or come up with to carry out a solution.
Agreed.
And so, again, one of my hopes is to, there'll be a change in administration in the city of Long Beach. I know both of the candidates for mayor, and it gives me another opportunity when that settles to talk to them and say, okay, we have a mutual problem. How can we work together? And whether it's cost sharing or go after a grant together. I mean, there's grants everywhere, but that doesn't mean that you actually get one, because it's the competition for these grants. And again, nobody's going to give you a grant and say, well, go find a solution. You have to present them with the solution, and then they'll see if they're going to give you money for it.
I could think 3 solutions off the top of my head right now without even reinventing the wheel to clean it up. I think that, and that's the part that I can't get my head around it. This beach has been filthy my entire life, and I'm going to be 47 this month. That just seems ridiculous to me.
Right. Now, keep in mind that that our beach crew does a pretty good job of cleaning the beach on an everyday basis.
No, let me speak to that for a moment too. Thank you for bringing that up. Our beach crew, Darren, those guys, they treat the beach like it's their own yard. And guess what? It is their own yard. In case
of Darren, it is his own yard.
Yeah, well, yeah, it is. It is his own yard. But and I don't mean to bring them into this conversation because they do a great job. And quite honestly, I wish they didn't have to do that job. Like there's sometimes they have to bring the tractor down there to scoop stuff up. I'm not just talking about raking the beach, just general maintenance. I'm just saying hypodermic needles and cans and jugs. I mean, it's just gotten so much worse.
Right.
There's got to be an easier way to fix the solution. We've got robots on Mars and satellites sending internet down to countries that don't even have infrastructure. I mean, how do we allow our beach to continue to look like that? It's just gotten overly complicated. I mean, again, they got the thing that, and by the way, the River Thames in London, I don't know if you've watched that river. It runs way faster than this one between tides. So whoever's saying that the water wheel can't handle it, that's a Newport Beach problem.
The water wheels that have been put into service, let's say, the people that make these particular, water wheels, they say that their water wheel, would be torn apart by the river that we have.
We need to get the Brits, we need them to send their water wheel over because that water wheel handled its business all day long. And I digress.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, look, this is, it's neither my job or my ability to solve this problem myself. I'm the guy that is out there looking for solutions. So if anybody has one that they have either read about, seen, heard, know somebody that's building something, and brings it forward, I don't need to take credit for solving the pollution in the river.
Yeah.
It's wherever the best solution comes from.
Well, I feel you nudging me to take on that project. I might just do it because I can't sit here and complain if I don't have a solution. So I might take that one on.
That'd be great. I mean, if you said you have maybe 3 ideas,
Yeah.
email me or tell the other candidates, so they can present it, whatever. Let's get the ideas out there and see what develops. I mean, I also, when I was on the Rivers and Mountains Conservancy, I mean, I started bugging them like crazy but unfortunately the Rivers and Mountains Conservancy, which has jurisdiction over the San Gabriel River, they primarily build stuff as opposed to cleaning up stuff.
Well, let's make them build something that cleans stuff up, and then that sounds like a win-win. I'll make a mental note of that one. So those are the people that you got to get a hold of.
Definitely.
Okay. Well, I think that's going to bring us to the end here. We're at 6:47. Closing thoughts, Joe. What would you like your constituents to know about you?
Well, I really have enjoyed being on the city council and being the mayor. Not so much for the ribbon cuttings and can you just say a few words events, but the fact that I attend a lot of meetings and I'm involved in a lot of other committees and so forth outside of the city, that I've come in contact with and met other mayors from other cities where we're able to share ideas. I'm on a first name basis with several people in the state Senate, the state assembly, and those are the people that you need to know, especially when there's redistricting and so forth. Now they're going to be my new best friends when I ask them for whatever the city needs to bring home. If I can toot my own horn in terms of, what have I done being on the city council? Each year, each council person has $20,000 discretionary spending, meaning it doesn't have to go before the whole council and it doesn't have to go into the budget. And so since I've been on the council, I've through my funding, I've funded all of the flashing stop signs that you see on Ocean Avenue at 12th and Electric and 12th and Landing, which will hopefully do something to slow down the freeway speeds on, in those areas.
Yeah.
I just completed funding the new dog park at Zoder, which
Awesome.
they just finished putting up the new fence and they're installing the drinking fountains. And we'll have, I think on the 26th, we're going to have like a grand opening, but that'll be open, in a matter of, maybe it's even open by now as far as it being complete. And this is where meeting with the people outside the city, when Katrina Foley was our supervisor, I found out through my son who sits on the council in Huntington, he called me to tell me that they had just purchased these handicap beach accessibility mats that roll out onto the beach that allow people who are wheelchair bound or are otherwise incapacitated enough to not be, or just old like me, to be able to walk out down to get down to the water. And so that was going to be pretty expensive. And so one day I had a conversation with our county supervisor, and I mentioned that we were looking for some money for that. I put on a very pathetic voice, we're really hurting here. We want to. So anyway, and she said, maybe we can help you with that. And through her office, they funded $40,000 to place the mats that we have on either side of the pier out of the parking lot. So I'm very proud of that, not because I did it or because it's an accomplishment, but the comments that I have gotten from people about what it's meant to them to be able to go down to the water. You can't even, it would bring you to tears.
I've seen so many people enjoying those.
Yes.
I talk about something that, you take for granted your entire life, living at the beach and,
exactly.
and having mobility. No, you forget about that. And it wasn't until they were installed. Was it 2021 that those were installed?
Yeah.
Yeah, 2021. I just, people would just go right out them, with their, whether it's a elderly person in a wheelchair or if it's the kids in that little wagon, it just really created that accessibility
And
for people to get down to the water. So I did like that. That was really a nice improvement.
so, and I can honestly say that I treat Old Town as my front yard. And I ride my bike almost every single day all over Old Town. And if I see weeds where there shouldn't be, or if I see cracks that need to be taken care of immediately, or anything like that, and I have a very receptive staff that will respond to, maybe because they have to, but they do, to any questions that I have, any things that I need to be taken care of very quickly, and things get done. And so, I'm trying to keep our community looking good, and to maintain a police force that is adequate so that we can deal with the problems of the world today and so forth. And I think that I've done a good job at that, and want to continue to serve our city.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. And I know that everybody on our event here tonight appreciates it. And I think that kind of brings us to the end here tonight, Joe.
Okay.
We'll let you get off the clock now that you've rounded out your day here with one final interview.
That's all right. If anybody wants to contact me as far as asking additional questions that weren't brought up here, or please call. I'll just give my phone number. It's on my business card. It's 562-397-4124.
And what about an email address?
It's joekalmick@gmail.com.
Easy enough. Perfect.
Yes.
All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and stop our recording and say thanks again for joining me tonight.
I didn't realize it's actually getting dark.